Hello, in today's video I'm going to be talking about Microsoft Entra ID's administrative units. To make that a little bit easier to talk about, I'm going to shorten it to admin units, but admin units are a feature within Microsoft Entra that allows you to assign administrator roles that are scoped to select users, groups or devices. So an example of how this may work is you might say have a regional office. Within that regional office, you've got an IT administrator, and you ideally want that IT administrator to be able to reset the passwords of everyone within that office, maybe have some management of the groups that are specific to that office and the devices, but you don't necessarily want them to be able to do that for every person in the organization that is beyond that regional office. Well, using admin units, you're able to do this. And what you can do, for example, is you could grant that administrator the help desk admin role, and then you would add in the users, devices, and groups that administrator should be able to administrate. Now, this is a great tool because it allows us to apply least privilege and taking it a little bit further than what we would traditionally do, where we're saying, right, well, we don't want to give someone the global admin role, we'll give them the help desk role because we only really need them to realistically reset passwords and maybe update group memberships and stuff like that. Whereas with this, we're actually saying, well, we want them to do that, but only for these users. So we're not giving them access to do that to everyone within the organization. Another feature within the admin units is what they call a restricted admin unit. Now this takes things slightly further, and this is for more kind of highly sensitive cases where maybe it's your directors or your C-level executives that you want to be able to determine the administrators that can reset the passwords for those users, and anyone else that you don't really trust to do that doesn't have that access, regardless of the roles that they have within the tenant. So in this scenario, what it could be is that you've got your most senior administrators that you're happy to be able to perform administrative tasks for those users, their devices and their groups. What you would do is you'd grant them that role over the admin unit. You'd specify the users as normal, but what this would mean is, say for example, if you had another administrator in the tenant who's not been given a role on that admin unit, they could even have the global administrator role, they wouldn't be able to perform administrative tasks for the users within that admin unit. So as you can tell, they're quite useful for being able to restrict the admin access that is applied within your environment, and I'll now quickly show you how we can actually create them. Okay, so to create an admin unit, you first need to browse to entra.microsoft.com, and you just want to make sure that the Entra ID node is expanded on the left hand side, and then we're going to click roles and admins. And then we're going to go to admin units, and you'll notice here that I've actually got two that I prepared earlier just for demo purposes, but I'll quickly recreate those now just to show you how that actually works. So I'm going to click add here, and then I'm going to set the name to normal. The description, feel free to enter something that's relevant to yourself. And then at the bottom, we'll see that we've got a restricted management administrative unit toggle there. Now, in our case, this is the normal one, so we're going to leave that as no. And then what I'm going to do is click next. And now I'm going to choose the administrators that I want to have access to this administrative unit. So here we can see we've got the various different roles that we can assign to people. We can assign multiple different roles, and we can assign multiple administrators to each of those roles. So in our case, I'm actually just going to select the authentication administrator here, and I'm going to grant that access to Frazzle. So in our scenario here, Frazzle is the administrator and he's an authentication administrator. I'll click next, and now you'll see that I can just create the admin unit. So you'll notice that we've not been asked to add any users, groups or devices yet. I'll click create. And if I just go into that one now, you'll see that there's now these options here to add users, groups and devices. So in our case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a couple of users here. So I'm actually going to select Nala and Remy. I'm going to add both of those into there. So give that a second before you click refresh, because as you'll notice, it takes a little bit of time for those to come through. But yeah, now we've got our users in there, and again, it would be similar if you wanted to add groups. In the case of a group, if you add a group here, that is giving the administrator the ability to administrate that group, so they can add or remove members or update the group. They're not going to be able to administrate members of that group, so they wouldn't be able to, for example, reset the password of someone who is a member of a group that you add here. And you've got the option for devices as well. So that's our normal one that's been created. So in this instance, what we've done is we've granted Frazzle, the authentication administrator, access to both of these users. So if I very quickly just go over to Frazzle here. Okay, so I'm now in Frazzle's profile, and if I now go ahead and search for Nala, we can see that Frazzle has access to be able to access the authentication methods here. So Frazzle can add a temporary access pass, for example. So if I click add there, that all gets added, no problem. However, if, for example, I search for Twiglet and I try to do that, so I go to, you'll notice that actually those options are not available, and actually even if I click reset password here, you'll notice that Frazzle hasn't got the access to do that. So although we've granted him the authentication administrator role, he's not got the ability to use that role against the Twiglet user object, because we've only granted him access to Nala and Remy. Now, I've granted him access to Remy to demonstrate how the restricted admin unit also works as well. So we'll look at that user object in a short while. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come back to here as my admin account now, and we are going to create our restricted admin unit. So let me put the name restricted here, and what we want to do now is we want to select yes for the restricted management admin unit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click next, and now in this case I'm going to assign the same role again, but I'm going to assign it to a different administrator. So in our case, I'm actually going to select Lucifer this time. So we're going to grant this admin role to Lucifer, we're going to click next, and then we're going to click create. And again, similar to what we had before with the normal one, we then get the option to add users, groups and devices. So they are very, very similar, even though they work in very different ways. So in our case here for the users, I'm now going to add Remy into here. So let me select Remy, and what we've done now is we've basically said that Lucifer is going to have the authentication administrator role assigned to him in the scope of the user Remy. We already provided Frazzle the authentication administrator role in scope of Remy as well. However, as you can see, we've now added Remy to that restricted management group. And the way that those work is that they actually restrict other administrators from being able to administrate the user in there. So essentially what we've done here is we've said we only want Lucifer to be able to administrate Remy Parmeter in the context of the authentication administrator. So if I quickly go over to Frazzle's profile again, we've got Remy here, we can see this user is a member of the restricted management administrative unit. Management rights are limited to administrators scoped in that administrative unit. So here we can see that I've not got the ability to edit any of the capabilities here. If I go to the authentication methods, I can't add one, I can't reset the password. Frazzle isn't able to do anything against the Remy object, even though Remy is part of an administrative unit that Frazzle has administrator rights to. So it's important to note that restricted management admin units are very, very restricted. And essentially what we're saying is if a user is in one of those admin units, we only want the administrators of that admin unit to be able to administrate those users. So I can take that one step further. If I go back to my own admin account and I go to Remy, we will see that I also am unable to do this. Now my account is a global administrator within this tenant, and I'm still unable to make any changes to Remy's object here. So that's something to consider. It is very, very restrictive, and you're only looking to use this when there is certain users in the tenant that only should be administrated by certain users. So if I just quickly go back here, if I go to Frazzle just to show you how it looks for, sorry, not Frazzle, for Lucifer,
If I go to Remy now, Lucifer actually has the ability, so we still get that banner there, but Lucifer does have the ability to administrate Remy's user object. So if we go to authentication methods here, and if I go here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a temporary access pass and click add, and we can see that's now been added. So Lucifer has been given access to this object and is able to do that. Now, if Lucifer goes to another object, so let's look at Twiglet, for example, again, we can see he doesn't have the capabilities to administrate that one. So that principle of kind of limiting it to select users still stands there, but with a restricted one, what we're really doing is limiting the object to a subset of administrators only, and any other administrator, even if they are included in an admin unit that the user is also included in, they will not be able to administrate that user. So it's a very secure way of being able to restrict the administration of users to select administrators.
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, if you could please like, comment or subscribe, that would be really appreciated, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.